Hi, I'm Carla with Race to Walk, and thanks for joining me. And today I'm going to share with you my library book haul that I just picked up. So before we get started, here we share good thoughts about good words. And on Tuesdays, I upload videos about books. And on Fridays, I host a live Bible study on Instagram at Race to Walk. And then I upload that here later to YouTube. So if that is interesting to you, be sure to like, subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell for notifications when I post new videos. So anyway, just to get started, I was at Houston Baptist University. I was in the library helping someone with something, and I walked around the corner and they had this huge bookshelf of like one of those rolling ones with, it said free books, take one. And they had all different kinds of books. They had theology books, they had books on psychology, they had textbooks, they had a lot of nonfiction, they had fiction. I actually saw some Left Behind books there, did not get those. But anyway, so I was like, wow, awesome. So I don't know about you, but if you're a reader and you see free books, that's like, oh, coolest thing, best day ever. So I got home, I saw the latest video from Christy Lewis Reviews, and she was saying that it is Nonfiction November, which I did not know that. So I guess it's kind of like a thing to read nonfiction in November, but all of these books are actually nonfiction. So I'm going to just show you the books that I got, and let me know like which you think I should read first. So anyway, the first one is A Doorway to a New Age, and it is by James D. Stewart. And it is on a study of Paul's letters to the Romans. Now, this was published in, 1972. And the reason I got this, I might not have gotten this otherwise, but I don't know if you can tell, but this book is like so well used. Like somebody read this, and like the cover, it has such a hard crease to it that the cover almost falls open just holding it here. I mean, somebody, I don't know if it was a particular person that had this or if this was just checked out a lot, but this has been well used and obviously well loved. And there's a note in here that says, note the author, I believe, never mentions Jesus crucified without adding the word risen. And it's just you're just looking at this, you can tell that somebody really, really, I don't know what this is. There's an X for this. I don't know. Like I said, this is a very well-used book. And this is crazy. I'm going to have to read this and see what somebody thought about this. There's an X mark through several passages. I don't know if they didn't like this or I don't know. I'll have to read it and see what the deal is, because somebody really was having a conversation with the author in this book. But that's part of the reason I got it. The second one is Fay Weldon's Letters to Alice on First Reading Jane Austen. Now, this is puzzling to me. I got this from, the library was getting rid of it, so it was obviously a library book, but then it has this half-price book sticker on it. So I don't know how this ended up in the university library. But anyway, this one was published in 1984. So let me read this. And it on the back blurb, it says, a witty, convincing, and spirited defense of the practice of reading and writing fiction, both a fascinating study of Jane Austen and the novelist's inquiry into her own art. And that's from the Saturday Review. And then the blurb is, Fay Weldon's Letters to Alice is a modern writer's passionate reply to her niece's complaint that Jane Austen is tedious and of little relevance to the contemporary reader. By turns engaging and ironic, the writer urges Alice to read and discriminate between literature and just books. And once Alice can appreciate the very different arts of reading and writing, she will surely, the writer believes, be enchanted by the city of invention and the new and old worlds that flow from the pen. So I wanted to get this just because this is true. I mean, all books are not equal, and we do need to be able to evaluate them. Not saying that you can't, like just fluff writing, but we do need to be reading those good books too. And so this sounds like it's about both writing and reading, which is part of the reason that I got this. So the next one I got was The Spirit-Filled Life by Charles Finney. And this is, this edition I think was published, it's 1979, but Charles Finney actually, he lived from 1792 to 1875, and he was a minister and a revivalist, and I'd heard his name before. I think the only thing that I've read of his is a sermon against Freemasonry, but I've heard a lot about him. He was an abolitionist, He also promoted equal education for everyone. So he was really kind of a radical in his time. So let me read the cover of this. The real meaning of life. You can be a spirit-filled and fruit-bearing Christian, bringing great glory to God. Discover the joy of knowing that your salvation is secure and that your faith will lead you to a victorious life. Charles Finney shows you how to be sure of your salvation so that you can enter into its fullness with all the benefits and blessings of the new life that God desires for you. The grace of God that brings you salvation also enables you to grow strong in your faith. Through Finney's words, you will learn how you can experience the bountiful blessings of God, grace to meet all your needs, spiritual well-being, healing in Christ, safekeeping from evil, complete deliverance from sin, and the joy of bringing others to Christ. So I haven't really read anything of his, but he was a pretty major figure, and I think that we should know those heroes of the faith, like the Catholics. That's the whole thing about the saints. These were these great believers that had so much faith, and we don't in the Protestant church. We don't really make a whole lot of some of those people that came before us, and it's important not to forget. So anyway, like I said, I've never read anything by him other than a little blurb of a sermon, but I thought this would be good to have just to familiarize myself with his work. So the next one is Towers to Eternity by Paul E. Freed. And this was published in 1968 by Word Books in Waco, Texas. So I had never heard of any of this, but this is The Inspiring Story of Trans World Radio by Paul E. Freed. A Monte Carlo radio station, formerly a base for Adolf Hitler's Nazi propaganda, now transmits gospel broadcasts. From Bonaire in the Netherlands Antilles, both AM and shortwave transmitters blanket Cuba, South America, and much of the Western Hemisphere with Christian answers to life's problems. Towers to Eternity is the almost unbelievable story of the Trans World Radio, the impossible dream of Paul Freed, from the first broadcast in 1954 over the Voice of Tangier to the present day. It is a story of great faith. So I thought that sounded kind of interesting. Next one I got is Christian Ethics, a Primer by William M. Tillman and Timothy D. Gilbert. This is another one I've never heard of before. It was published in 1986. And let me read the blurb on this. Christian Ethics, a Primer, is an introduction to the basic concepts and areas of concern of Christian ethics. It is written in a popular and conversational style. The use of case studies, life situations, discussion, questions, suggestions for further reading, and personal small group activities enables the reader to experience ethics firsthand. The book is divided into 3 parts. A look at the context page will enable you to see the scope of the book. Yeah, it normally does. That's just a bizarre sentence to put in a blurb. All of us make moral decisions. This book will enable you to make better ethical decisions. Students of ethics will find this an excellent beginning to the study of ethics. Actually, when I picked this up, I was thinking it was going to be more philosophical versus kind of a practical guide. So I don't know, it might still be interesting. This is another one that's been well used. Tons of highlights in here. This is how I read my books. So that would be kind of interesting. Okay. The next one, kind of got this just because, doesn't this look like an awesome book? I don't know. Like when you see this, it looks like some hidden book that has all these secrets that you find on the library shelf. But this is A Mind of Jesus by William Barclay, and this was published in 1960. I have no idea what this is other than I just like the look of it. But in the contents, it kind of just goes through his life: the great discovery, waiting for the call, the hour strikes, choosing his way, beginning the campaign, the kingdom of God. I guess it's just a reflection on Jesus's life. This is another one that's been well used. And this is partly what puzzles me, because I don't know if these were donated to the library, because you wouldn't go writing in the library book. So I don't know why there's all these markings in these. So I don't know where these came from, actually. So the next one is The Other Son of Man by, let's see, who is this by? By Andrew W. Blackwood Jr. And this was published in 1966. Now, part of the reason I got this is because actually when I was in the apologetics program, one of the papers I wrote was on the use of the Son of Man in the Second Temple period. This is a study of Ezekiel because Ezekiel is called the Son of Man. And this looks like a really interesting book. It goes over the main sections of Ezekiel. And so I'm just going to read the first paragraph of this. So even a tepid admirer of Ezekiel discovers rapidly that many consider his enthusiasm strange and unaccountable. For to put it charitably, Ezekiel does not appeal to contemporary taste. Valuable books about the great prophets do not accord to Ezekiel so much as a footnote. I admit readily that others outrank Ezekiel in important respects, yet I call to your attention a curiously neglected fact. Jesus, who certainly was influenced by the other prophets, chose to associate his work with Ezekiel's by a strange self-designation, Son of Man, a term that appears rarely in the rest of the Old Testament, but 87 times in Ezekiel. The extent to which the modern world neglects Ezekiel as a Son of Man may be gauged from a profound scholarly work recently translated into English by Heinz Edward Todd, the Son of Man in the Synoptic Tradition. So like I said, this was published in 1966. I think there's been, since that time, there's been a lot more, a scholarship done on Ezekiel and the Son of Man, because I did find quite a bit when I was writing my paper. So anyway, but I still think that this would be interesting and a good research. It would be interesting to see what he has to say. So here's another one that's beaten up. Like, you can't even read the title of this, but this is... What is this? Okay, this is Arnold's Practical Commentary on the International Sunday School Lessons, Improved Uniform Series, Course for 1942. This is the 48th annual volume. You know what the International Sunday School Lessons or Improved Uniform Series is? But what it is, it basically has a year's worth of, so it has a lesson for every week. So I don't know if you can tell, but like this is lesson 2, and it gives the readings, and it will go over the text, and then it has the text explained, and then it has like a sample discussion. So this is like, I guess like before there was the internet and Logos Bible software, I guess this must have been the kind of things that they used as a resource and study guide. So anyway, this is like well used. Like, look, you can't even see like all the gold is worn off, but I just thought this was interesting. It was just, I've never seen anything like this before. So the last book that I got was Evangelism and Social Involvement by Delos Miles. This was published in 1986. In this blurb, it says, evangelism and social involvement comes from the heart of a man who practices what he teaches. This book will show how Jesus brought evangelism and social service into a whole. It is not either evangelism or social service for the follower of Jesus Christ. On the contrary, the person who would follow Jesus must integrate evangelism and social involvement into one ministry. In other words, our evangelism must have social involvement, and our social involvement must be evangelistic. This book is divided into 3 sections as Dr. Miles traces the linkage of evangelism and social involvement. Section 1 shows the biblical origins, historical roots, and theological roots of the connection of evangelism and social involvement. Section 2 speaks to the contemporary bridge building between evangelism and social service. He gives examples from individual Christians, from local churches, and from parachurch organizations. Section 3 points towards the future, discussing point of need evangelism, prophetic evangelism, and advice to Christian social ministers and evangelists. This book is at the heart of Christian ministry. You will use it for many years to come. It could revolutionize your life of Christian service. So actually in my last Bible study on Friday, in the 1 Year Chronological Bible, they basically grouped everything that Jesus said about the end times into one section. And so we read through the whole thing. So it was a little longer than my Bible studies normally are, but it ended with the account in Matthew when he's talking about what we do for others, we're actually doing for Jesus. And so if we neglect the people in need around us, that we are going to be held accountable for that. And I think this is an interesting topic, especially for today, because, we have certain segments of the church that seem to dismiss that. And I think that it's important to remember. Now, anyway, that is my my book haul from the library of free books. Which of these would you read first? Let me know. Let me know if there's any of these that you're interested in hearing about more about and having a review on. So anyway, thanks for joining me. And again, if you haven't subscribed, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. And thanks again, and I will see you next time.